Hello everyone, and good day to you wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the final webinar in our new webinar series, Teaching English with Graded Authentic Global Resources. Over 4 weeks, this series explores different ways in which graded authentic global resources can benefit learners and support our work as teachers. In previous sessions in the series, we've explored accent diversity with Gemma Archer, emergent language with Danny Norrington-Davies and Richard Chin, and effective ways to integrate global issues into our learners' classes with Dr. Amina Douidi last week. Now, finally, we're delighted to have Vicky Salmel here with us to bring this series to a close with a look at planning lessons with video resources that bring some of these important focuses into learning alongside elements of digital literacies, critical thinking, and learner training. I'm Adam, the Education Director at Sensations English, and if you need any help during this webinar, please contact me in the chat. Just a reminder that if you're watching this webinar live, a CPD certificate will be sent to your email 24 hours after the webinar. If you're watching the video recording, please make a note of your own professional development activity. The webinar will last an hour, which will include time for questions at the end of Vicky's talk. Please write questions in the Q&A box, which appears when you move your mouse to the bottom of the Zoom window. If someone's already written the same question, you can click the thumbs up button next to that question to move it higher up the list rather than writing it again. And if you need any help during the webinar, please contact me in the chat box. Sensations English is focused on helping teachers develop their skills. We're delighted to be hosting regular webinars for teachers to support quality evidence-based practice. You can view all our previous webinars on the Sensations English Webinars website, including our monthly webinars and another special series on using video in ELT. And these recordings all come with slides from the presentations too. We hope that they will help you to develop your own practice and expand your use of authentic resources with your classes. Sensations English lesson resources are a great new advance in ELT content. We are delighted to offer teachers hundreds of videos and news article resources, all graded at 5 CEFR levels and all with ready-made learning activities. They make video and news accessible to all learners and hassle-free for teachers. There are 3 new 5-level resources to use every week, giving you access to the most up-to-date content to use with all your learners. Our Sensations English Schools edition includes logins for all your teachers and students and a digital teacher gradebook, which lets schools and teachers organise students into classes, set tasks and monitor them live, and review learners' progress over time. To start using this great resource in the Schools edition, just go to the link I'll post on the screen and in the chat to sign up. Now, to tell you a little bit more about today's speaker, Vicky Salmel. Vicky is a teacher, trainer, materials writer and presenter specialising in technology integration and project-based learning. She has worked for major publishers and she currently teaches at primary and secondary level schools in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She has a website at vickysalmel.com, which I will also pop into the chat. Vicky, thanks once again for being here, and it's over to you.
Hi, everybody, wherever you are in the world. I've seen so many different places. It's amazing. It's morning for me, but I've seen it's evening for some of you, midday. So thanks for taking the time to be with me today. I'm going to start sharing my screen so that I can show you what we have in store for today. I usually start by telling you a little bit about my context, but I don't think I need to do that today. So I'm going to dive straight into what we are going to talk about. And as the title of the webinar says, we're going to try to explore how to plan meaningful learning experience using video in ELT. And so I'm going to be trying to disentangle methods and approaches and the way video can fit into different methods and approaches. So these are some of the things and some of the methods and approaches I'll be mentioning today. And it would be interesting, you know, there's a lot of acronyms there. So I did both the acronyms and the full names just in case. We are a field, you know, ELT, it's full of acronyms. So sometimes it's hard to keep track. So I'm going to be talking about PPP, which is presentation, practice, and production. TTT, which is test, teach, test. Task-based learning, TBL. Project-based learning, PBL. Guided discovery, which doesn't have an acronym, but I've done my own, so it's GD now. Communicative language teaching, CLT, and DOGME. Of course, there are many other methods and approaches that we could discuss today, but I think these are the more mainstream and current methods. So that's why I'm going to focus on those today. So before I start telling you what I have prepared for you today, I would like to know if you could please type in the chat whether there is any one of these methods that you don't know of, that you haven't heard of, or that you have no idea what it is about. Can you please type it in the chat, please? If you think you know them all, you can do all, and I'll be delighted. Okay, TTT, Andrea. Okay, we'll talk about that. Yes. Adam knows them all. I assume that if you're not typing, it means you know them all. That's lovely. Okay, so, but there are other things that usually we usually address in our lessons that are not, oh, DOGME, there we are, Marcel. Okay, we'll get there. There are other things that we address in our lessons that are not the methods we use in our lessons. For example, we talk about a few of these things. We deal with digital literacies, visible thinking, active learning strategies, creativity, critical thinking. So I'm going to try to tie all these things to the methods and approaches as well. So I'll be mentioning these things too. What are we going to do? Well, a while ago, like about 2 years ago, I gave a presentation for Sensations English, which was specifically about how to use video in with the Sensations English, of course, resources. And the presentation was basically about techniques for using video in the classroom. I'll be linking to that today, so a little bit. And of course, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can go back and watch that recording, which is on the Sensations English YouTube channel. But it's pretty simple. In my past talk, I talked about the different uses of video, and then we developed some techniques for the different uses of video. And I drew from Jane Willis' paper on the implications of the use of video in the ELT classroom, dating back to 1983, but still useful for what we are going to talk about today. You have a link to that article at the bottom if you want to read it. Jane said that mainly there are 4 different uses of videos in ALT. So we may use video to focus on language. We may use video to practice skills, or we may use video to be as a stimulus or as a resource. So what I've done is I've tied the methods in the previous slide to the uses in this slide, so that we can categorize and organize them a little bit. And it's clearer where to go depending on what you want to do. Okay, so here we have in capital letters, we have the uses of video. So we have language focus, skills practice, and stimulus and resource. Those are the 4 uses of video mentioned by Jane Willis, which I drew from. And Then we have the 7 methods and approaches. Yes, PPP, test, teach, test, guided discovery, and all of the others. So what I've done is I've thought, okay, can we use any method for any purpose, for anything? And it looked to me that there were some methods that were a better fit for certain uses of video. So I categorized them in this way. So I said, if you want to focus on language, then PPP, test, teach, test, and guided discovery are good fits for working with language. If you want to do skills practice, then communicative language teaching, task-based learning, and project-based learners are better fits than the others. And if you want to use a video as a stimulus or as a resource, then maybe Dogme is the best fit for a method to approach that. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at each of these in particular, trying to show you an example of a lesson and where video can fit in that lesson using that method. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. So if we look at using video as a language focus to provide a language focus, we need to understand that the video will present a language model, a grammar structure, vocabulary, words, chunks. It's important that comprehension, yes, comprehension is essential. So the most important thing is to choose the video at the right level. If you choose a very difficult video, then focusing on the language will be much more difficult. And here's the beauty of Sensations English, that if you like the topic, you can find the same topic at 5 different levels. So what you need to do is you need to choose the right level. So let's start with we'll start with PPP. But first, what I did is I selected the same video to show you the 3 methods with the same video resource, so that you can see how it fits and how it is worked with and how it is presented, used, exploited. Okay, so I chose this video. Let's have a look at a bit of it. We're not going to look to watch it whole, but here it goes.
These people are in Japan. They are remembering the tsunami. 10 years ago, there was an earthquake. Water covered the land. Many people died. 10 years later, people in Japan wanted to remember them. On the 11th of March 2021, everyone was quiet. People thought about their family. Some people put letters in the sea. Tomoe Ogi feels very sad.
Okay, so let's focus on that bit. It goes on, but it's the same feeling and the same topic. What do you think is the language focus for this video? Can you type it in the chat? Any ideas? Should I play a little bit more?
I don't know why, but I first
Yes,
watched TV,
definitely.
and then I was thinking to myself,
About 16,000 people died. Most people died in the tsunami.
Okay, so this is definitely the focus is the past simple. And as you can see, this is a very simple video, language level. It's A1. But you can find it at different levels. A1, A2, B1, B2, C1. So it's I'm going to show lessons using this video at different levels, depending on what we want to do. So let's start with PPP. There we are. So we said the language focus is on simple past. And PPP essential, PPP lessons, presentation, practice, and production, have 3 stages. There's a four boxes here because I included the video. Yes. So the 3 stages are, of course, presentation, practice, production. So in the presentation stage, you introduce the language, you teach the language. Okay. In this case, you would teach the simple past. Of course, you would teach the simple past according to the level you're teaching. Oh, we have a visitor. Sorry for that. So the next stage in practice is practice, and it's usually controlled practice, because what we call freer practice is the last stage, which is the production stage. Now, the question is, where do we include the video? And so what I would do is I would present the language, I would teach, then I would show the video so that they see that language in action. Yes. And then I would do some controlled practice based on the content of the video. All right. You can, of course, then move to freer practice in the production stage. So essentially, the video is going to be the exposure to the language. So I think most people know about presentation, practice, and production. So I don't think I need to stay here very long. Now we're going to move to the one that some people said you didn't know about, which is test, teach, test. And this is a useful approach for a group of students. You don't know very much where they are. You don't know very much how good they are, the level, how much they know about a certain topic. So what you do is you test the topic or the language focus before you start. So in this case, you would test their knowledge command use of simple past. And based on what you get from the test, you teach the gaps. You teach from scratch if it's necessary, or you just teach the gaps. What's missing, right? What are recurrent errors in most of the learners? Okay, you teach that. And then you test again and you compare the initial testing with the final testing. So where does the video fit now? Again, after you test the first stage where you test the simple past, I will show the video to expose the students to the language. And I would draw from that video to teach the missing links. Okay? And then, of course, you would finish the cycle with testing again. So, any questions about test, teach, test that you want to put in the chat so that I can address that later? Remember that you can start adding questions as you have them. I may not be able to answer them while I'm talking, because I might miss some questions, but I'm sure Adam will be collecting the questions and I can address them later. So that would be test, teach, test, which again, as I said, is probably not very useful for a beginner level, because we would assume that we need to teach almost everything. So it would work well for higher levels where you want to identify the gaps, yes, in certain structures or topics or whatever. So that's our second language focus method. We're now going to go to the next. Our next method is called guided discovery. And guided discovery, I have to say, is one of my favorites, because guided discovery has 4 stages. Yes. And as you can see, exposure to language comes first. It doesn't come after, yes, you have explained, as in PPP. It comes before. It's the first thing of all is your exposure to language. And what you're going to do is you are going to work from that language. You're going to show students the video. You're going to draw examples from that material. So if it's a video, you're probably going to select a few examples from the video and put them on the board. Yes. If it is a text, you can do the same. You can underline or highlight on the text, or you can just transfer some examples to the board. And the next step is, okay, let's observe this language. Let's observe the examples and let's compare and let's try to draw conclusions as to what is happening with the language. Yes. And so by observing and analyzing, we should be able to guess, discover the rule. Then why guided? Because at the second stage during the observation and analysis, what the teacher does is the teacher asks meaningful questions to help students discover the rules. So in the case of the simple past, you'd say, okay, look at the verb. Do you know this verb? Is it the same verb? Like, I don't know, if it's went, you say, have you ever seen went? It's not go. Have a look at the others. If there are affirmative or negative sentences, we can have a look at the auxiliary and see, okay, what is the auxiliary? What happens when you have an auxiliary? What happens to the main verb? Okay, so even if you don't use meta language like auxiliary or whatever, what is the word that appears in many of the sentences? What happens to the action? Yes, so you can guide students to discover the rules. Once they've done that analysis, you state the rule on the board. You don't leave it to the students to believe they have the right rule, because some of them may have gone somewhere else. So probably most of them would have the rule, but just in case, you state the rule. Okay, yes, you are right. This is what happens. And yes, you are right. This is also what happens. So we have this word did, we have this word didn't, this is what happens to the verb, etc., etc. And once you have paved the way to get to the rule, now you move to the practice stage. And of course, in the applying the new knowledge in practice will probably follow the PPP idea that you start with controlled practice first and freer practice later. Okay. So why is this one of my favorite methods? It's because it's active learning strategies at play. Learners are involved in working out what's going on. Yes, it's not you telling them the rule, which is probably meaningless for many of them. It's them discovering how the language works. Okay, and of course, when students get used to working in a guided discovery way, they have tools that will stay with them for the rest of their lives to work out other rules, to look at language in a particular way, in an analytical way. So we have critical thinking, we have active learning strategies at play. And although I am not taking visible thinking in its purest meaning, which is applying the visible thinking routines created by Harvard Project Zero and all that, which you could do. What I think is that whenever you do an activity and you help students to transfer their ideas to paper, that's visible thinking. Whether it is in a visible thinking routine format, like think, see, pair, share, think, pair, share, and or see, think, wonder, or the compass, or many of the visible thinking routines that exist. I would say that we can look at it in a much wider way in terms of, okay, how do I transfer my ideas to paper so that I can see what I'm thinking, so that my thinking is visible? Okay, so that's guided discovery. And so those were the three methods associated with language focus. We had PPP, practice, presentation, practice, production. We had test, teach, test, and guided discovery, which are three useful methods if we want to focus on language. Now, let's go to skills practice. What happens if instead of focusing on language, what I want to do is I want to practice skills? Then there are other methods that might be better. And so I'm going to look at communicative language teaching, task-based learning, and project-based learning. And when you talk about practicing skills with video, what's going to happen is there's going to be listening, of course. There's going to be reading of the closed captions if you enable them. And the video will offer a model for pronunciation and speaking that can later be used in follow-up tasks like role plays or any other task. So the beauty of using video, where you have a variety of accents, and as I'm sure Gemma mentioned in her webinar, the beauty of exposing our learners to a variety of accents that they may come across is so important. So so here it is. It's good to choose videos where you have a variety of speakers with a variety of accents. And Sensations English does that very, very well. So shall we have a look at the methods? Let's see, are there any questions in the chat? Yes, I love guided discovery. I think you love it too. Yes, perfect. Okay, so let's move on. Okay. For communicative language teaching, for this set, I chose different videos for each of the methods. So I'm going to show you the video first, and then I'm going to show you how we used it with this method, okay? So let's have a look at the video I chose for communicative language teaching.
The benefits of artificial intelligence, AI, are making headlines around the world, and a museum in San Francisco's opened an AI-themed exhibition. However, Misalignment Museum highlights both the benefits and dangers of artificial intelligence. Its manager, Audrey Kim, explains the message.
For this space, it's really trying to create a means for people to approach the tech and reflect on it and see it at different angles. I also think it's a really amazing technology. It's also really terrifying. It has potential for both good and bad, and so I want to create a space where we can be in a mind space to be open to both.
The art exhibition comes at a key moment. Famous AI supporters like Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak are demanding a 6-month pause on any further AI developments. The Future of Life Institutes coordinated an open letter titled Pause Giant AI Experiments, which is a warning to AI companies. Companies are encouraged to take the time to assess the risks of AI technologies and to put safeguarding controls in place.
Okay, so you get what the video is about. It's about the talk of the town, AI, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So plenty of food for thought there. This is what I thought of if I had to deliver a communicative language teaching lesson using this video. So I said, okay, I'm going to expose my students to the language fair. I will show them the video. This is going to be also like using the video as a stimulus for discussion. Yes. And so in a communicative language teaching lesson, you're going to facilitate or instruct or teach, and then you're going to have a task. In this case, I would say that after we expose learners to this video, I wouldn't want to teach anything in particular. Maybe you want to focus on some vocabulary related to AI, on some words or functional language to describe advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. And then I thought of two possible tasks with this. One is going to be a very traditional task, which is a role play or a group work, debating pros and cons of artificial intelligence. Okay. You could even set different groups to talk about artificial intelligence in different fields. So is it the same to talk about artificial intelligence in science, in medicine, in education, in art? So depending on the age of your students and the level of your students, you could have different groups talking about different the perils, if you want, of AI in different fields. So that would be a very traditional one. The teacher would be facilitating the discussion and making sure that communication is effective. Now, I thought of another task coming from the learning technologies field myself, and with the ongoing discussion on how to use or whether to use ChatGPT, for example, I thought that, okay, maybe you can have learners having a conversation with ChatGPT. You know, that is something you could do. It's like, okay, you need to give ChatGPT the right prompt. Okay, we're going to have a conversation. You're going to act as what? As a teacher, as a friend, you need to give it very specific prompts. And or I'm going to be, you know, you are going to be a shop assistant. I am going to be somebody buying something at the store. We are going to have a conversation. So, and so each student can actually have a conversation with ChatGPT. I understand that some people may not want to do that or take that as a learning task, but it's just an option. Okay, and he can do it really, really well. I have a colleague who set up ChatGPT to reply, yes, to reply as if he was in the Harry Potter world. And so every answer and the conversation was a free conversation, but it was embedded in the Harry Potter world and drew from the books and the characters and the style and everything. So it was pretty amazing what ChatGPT could do with creating a fluent conversation and keeping up a conversation with a person within those limits. So communicative language teaching. All right, let's move to our next. Of course, if you are doing anything related to technology, you are dealing with digital literacies, and this is not something we can escape. It's not whether you want to teach this or not. I mean, if you're going to use technology, then you will have to deal with digital literacies in its many aspects. So in this case, it would be, okay, we could have a very interesting discussion about, okay, ChatGPT, what is it good for? in the learners contexts, and as learners, how can they use it? What are ethical uses of it? What are not, etc., etc. So digital literacy is necessary in these times. Okay, let's go to our second skills practice method, and I'm going to talk about task-based learning. So this is the video I chose for the task-based learning lesson.
Everything I go with you?
Yeah, to help you, sir. Thanks. I'd like to check out.
The World Skills Championships have taken place in Montreux, Switzerland, testing and celebrating vocational skills ranging from 3D digital games art to cooking and electrical installations to the important role of hotel receptionist. Competitors are required to display a range of skills whilst being carefully watched by a team of judges and an audience. Tim Oberly is just 19 and the home candidate from Switzerland in the hotel receptionist competition. His earliest memories are of going on holiday with his parents.
And instead of joining the kids club or doing anything, activity-like, I took a chair, I sat in the lobby and I just observed what is happening in the lobby. I observed the people at the reception interacting with each other.
Oberly began working in a hotel at the age of 16 and now supervises a reception team at a luxury Alpine hotel, but is nervous as he tests out his skills against 15 other competitors from around the world. With actors playing the roles of guests, competitors have to be quick on their feet to react to the different situations they're presented with. Jane Stokies, the global director at World Skills.
We've got actors here, and the actors are being the guests, and in one module that's happening, there's a troublesome guest, and there's somebody booking in, and in another module, there's an ill guest.
Whilst the practical skills are paramount for the
Okay, so video goes on. It's about 3 minutes, but you get the idea. So I'm going to move forward. So I'm going to use this video as a prompt for my task-based learning lesson. So a TBL lesson has 3 stages: the pre-task, the task cycle, and the language focus stage. Now, in the pre-task, you prepare students for the task. So in this case, you would show them the video. Yes? You would show them the video and you would tell them what you expect from them, what the task is about and what you expect them to do. There's usually no teaching, though there might be some vocabulary revision if you want, but there's no teaching before the task, okay? So you will show them the video of this hotel receptionist contest. And in the task cycle, what I would do is I would have my learners role play situations in which a hotel receptionist might find themselves. So booking, booking a restaurant, booking a room, having a problem in the room, any type of problem a hotel receptionist might face, and they would have to role play that. Now, what happens in a task-based learning lesson is that students carry out the task and then they plan their report to the rest of the class. So what does that mean? They carry out the task and then they sit together and they say, okay, what happened when we carried out the task? What went right? What went wrong? What language did we need? What could we have done better? Okay, and so they plan their report, which can be a written report or an oral report, and then they report back to their class, to the rest of the class. And what happens after that, after every group has reported on their task, is the teacher focuses on the language and draws from the reports from the learners and analyzes the language, yes, draws attention to the meaningful bits and extends the practice. Extending the practice could be a controlled practice at the beginning, or it could mean redoing the task. Okay, now that you know all this, can you do the role play again, for example? So that would be a TBL lesson, for example, using a video as a model for the task. All right. There's, of course, a lot of critical thinking going into task-based learning lessons, because learners do need to think before they can carry out the task, and then after the task they still need to make choices and analyze what has happened. Okay, so let's move on to our last skills practice method. In this case, it's project-based learning, and a project-based learning lesson has the following stages. It has a driving question, so it starts with a question. Then there's a stage where you make sure the students have all the needs to know. And this is an interesting terminology, because the needs to know may be, it may be language. So it may be a language focus, but it may be vocabulary. It may be skills. It may be content. I don't have the necessary content to do this, so I need the content. So the needs to know is a very wide way of approaching all the things that the students need to know in order to do the project after that. After the addressing the needs to know, you go into the inquiry or research phase, where students will research in order to be able to carry out the task. And the task in a project-based learning environment is an end product. It's something tangible. So the end product could be a poster, a magazine, a video, a role play, anything that is there that you can see. Okay, so in stage 3, students will do the research in order to be able to do the task. And then, of course, the task will be assessed. Now, in the case of this lesson, I decided to use an audio clip instead of a video. Yes, because you know Sensations English also has some materials that are on audio. So I thought it would be interesting to show you this. So let's listen to
The Rise of the Dumb Phone, 25th of April, 2022. How many social media apps do you have? Almost everybody wants a smartphone these days, but some people don't like spending all their free time on apps, mobile games, and social media. They're choosing dumb phones. Dumb phones are simple. They can make calls, send texts, and take photos. They're like phones from the 1990s. 17-year-old Robin Wests had a dumb phone for 2 years. She didn't want a smartphone anymore. She'd planned to buy an old phone, but then she found a basic brick phone.
Okay, so dumb phone, had you ever heard of that? I had, but I've never really paid attention. So I thought this was an interesting topic, especially for young teenagers and young adults who are like, overwhelmed by social media and all that. So, and I include myself. So how would I turn this into a project material? Because that's the question. Okay, why did I select this? So my driving question would be, what would you have on your dumb phone? And it doesn't necessarily So it does not necessarily have to be a complete dumb phone like I posted here. So we could have some interpretations as to what my dumb phone would do. So what would your dumb phone do or be like? What would be the needs to know? Probably vocabulary, features. All right, and then you would have groups going into the research phase where they would design their dumb phone, and they would draw it and then have an oral presentation explaining what their dumb phone does. Okay, so it would be designing your dumb phone. Now, this definitely involves creativity, which is one of the other things we said we sometimes deal with. Yes, along with all the other things that we do in the classroom, we also try to promote creativity. So project-based learning is a great vehicle to promoting creativity. I've been doing project-based learning for years already, and it's amazing the products and the ideas that your learners have, and how they can put it on paper or on video or whatever. It's just amazing. So this is a great way to do skills and creativity. Okay, all right, I'm moving on to the last purpose and the last method. Yes, we said stimulus and resource, yes, were other ways of using video. When you use video as a stimulus, it means it's a catalyst for follow-up classroom tasks. Yes, and when you use video as a resource, that is content. It provides content. It's a source of information. Okay, so let's go to our last method, DogMe. And I think someone said they were not quite sure what DogMe is. DogMe is an approach that was created by Scott Thornberry and Luke Meddings, and their basic premise is that it needs to be materials light, and it needs to use the students as the main resource. Does it mean that I cannot do DogMe if I use a course book? No, it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to have a look at how to do it with a video, for example. So in a DogMe lesson, what you have is an introduction to the task, which is going to be the trigger, the stimulus, and then you're going to have the task, and this task is facilitated by the teacher. Yes, and the teacher may facilitate as the activity is happening. The teacher may stop the activity to draw attention to some things that teacher thinks are essential, and then the activity can continue, or the teacher can think this task is finished, explain or draw ideas on the board, the language that may be useful for the learners, and then propose another task. Okay, this DogMe is where the concept of emergent language came from initially, and many people think that the only way to deal with emergent language is doing DogMe, which isn't really. And you can deal with emergent language when using any method or approach. It just means like being alert to the way learners use language that was not the target language you planned for the lesson. What happens when other chunks of language, other structures pop up, and students really needed to communicate, then you pick on that emergent language and you work with it. Okay. I don't have time to go into emergent language, but please go and see Richard Chin's and Danny Norrington Davis webinar on emergent language, which was brilliant. So let's have a look at what I chose for this lesson. Just a little bit.
Government revives old school rule, 17th of October, 2022. High school students in the Ivory Coast are facing the re-establishment of a 1970s government mandate, whereby students failing to meet the benchmark grade won't be readmitted to school. The measure has been revived in the hopes that students strive for better grades, which will promote academic excellence. Students risk being barred from secondary school if they fail to achieve a minimum score of 8.5 in their latest exams.
Okay, it goes on, but it's basically that. It's basically an old rule that said that if you didn't score the minimum amount, you wouldn't be allowed to continue your studies. So that's pretty harsh in some cultures, and that's pretty standard in others. So I think this would be a great point of discussion for advanced levels. So I would play that as the intro. The task would be to discuss this rule in particular and other rules, yes, that you think schools would have to have, and which rules students would have to do away with. For example, the groups would be discussing, the teacher will be paying attention, taking down notes, then coming to the board, laying out interesting, useful, necessary language on the board so that students can continue their discussion. What do we have here? A lot of critical thinking. You need to analyze what you are listening and what you want to say. So we've seen 7 methods and 7 examples of lessons and where the video would fit in each of the lessons and how to go about it. So I want to wrap up now with 2 slides. One is essential, which is okay. So in order to be able to do this, everything that we've been talking about today, I need to be able to do 2 things. I need to be able to choose the right videos, and I need to be able to choose the right method. And how do we go about that? Okay, in order to choose the right videos, of course, there's the matter of topic. The topic needs to be appropriate. There's the matter of length. You know, shorter videos tend to be better received. So no more than 3 minutes. Attention spans have dropped dramatically. So shorter videos work better. There's the issue of frequency. How frequently do you use videos? So what do I want to do with it? And then there's purpose, and purpose is what has been threading the whole presentation today. So purpose again is, do I want to focus on language? Do I want to practice skills? Do I want the video to be a stimulus or resource, providing content? So what is the purpose? And according to your purpose, you are going to choose your method. So let's move to method. How do I choose the right method? And is there such a thing as the best method? This is a question that has been asked forever and is still being asked. Like, what is the best method? And I don't think there's an answer for that, or at least my answer for that is, oh God, that depends greatly on a variety of factors. So what are the factors that influence my choosing a method? First of all, there's your beliefs about teaching and learning. What do you believe learning is like? And then if you believe learning is this, how do you teach so that learning is this? So there are certain methods, for example, maybe the audiolingual method that I don't agree with. I don't share beliefs that would make me choose that method. Okay. What is, again, going back to purpose, I think that's the key word. What is the purpose? What do you want to do? Do you want to teach language? Do you want to practice skills? Do you want to give information? What do you want to do? What's the purpose? Depending on the purpose, you're going to choose the method. What are the learner's needs? Because this is very important, and the learner's needs vary, are different, or learner needs cover different aspects, like, okay, language level, age, topic they are interested in, what do they need English for, why are they studying English, etc., etc. So you need to choose something that matches their needs, okay? And of course, I think variety is essential. You wouldn't want, I mean, I love guided discovery, but I wouldn't teach every language focus lesson using guided discovery. I teach guided discovery when guided discovery is the better option, but then I sometimes do PPP. I sometimes do other things, okay? So variety is also essential. So again, is there a right method? I think there is a right method for your particular context, your particular learners, your particular teaching and learner beliefs at a certain moment, okay? And this changes. So this is my message for today. In order to be able to choose methods, you need to know about methods. And once you know about different methods, you need to try them out, yes? Try a method that you haven't used. If you haven't used guided discovery, go ahead and try to have a lesson, try to have a dogma lesson, try to have a project-based lesson, and experiment with different methods to see how they fit, yes, different things you want to do in the classroom. So I think that's all for today. I hope I was clear enough. I would have liked to say many, many more things, but I'm running out of time. So are there any questions, Adam?
Hi, Vicky. Thank you so much for that. That was a wonderful presentation. And yeah, we've got a few questions. The first one is from Alan, who asks, in TTT, do we teach target language or show the video first?
What I would do is in teach test, in test, teach, test, you test first. When you teach, you can choose to teach and then show the video, or the other way around. It doesn't matter. It depends on the video. It depends on how clear the language focus is in the video you are using, whether you think it will be better to show it before teaching, but it's up to you.
Great, thank you, Vicky. A couple of other things, one more about TTT. Can TTT be used for a formative assessment method?
I think it could. I think what's important in TTT is that you compare the two testing stages, that you see that there is progress from the first testing stage to the last. So that could be formative assessment. Yes, you're not taking the test score itself as a measure, but what you are seeing is whether there has been progress.
Great, thank you. One quick question about Dogme. I think it was Andrea asked, are you talking about student-centered learning? And I wondered if you could just say a little bit about student.
Well, definitely, Dogme is student-centered learning, because in a Dogme lesson, the teacher will mostly stand back, have students talk, communicate. The teacher will take notes and will of course, the teacher is very, very important in the sense that the teacher can see what the gaps in communication are, for example, or what vocabulary is needed and is missing. So the teacher takes notes, stops the lesson at a certain part, says, okay, let's have a look at this. I saw you were trying to say this. Well, these are some ways of saying this. I saw you were trying to, I don't know, offer help. These are some ways of offering help. Okay, and then you can resume the task. But the task is done by, I mean, it's mostly student-led conversation.
Great, thank you very much for that. And just if we have time, one more comment really, saying that learners' profile is also very crucial in choosing the most suitable method for, and that kind of goes into what you were saying. I wondered if you've got any more comments about learners' profile.
Well, you know, there are certain, I don't know exactly what you mean by profiles, but what I'm thinking about is there are certain cultures where you wouldn't expect students to do guided discovery, for example. There are certain cultures that expect to be taught from the very beginning, like, okay, teach us. I don't want to do the thinking, you teach us, okay? So I think that you need to be aware of where you're teaching. You need to be aware of your students, and you need to be aware whether this can work or not, or at least try it, and maybe you'll find it doesn't work, or you find resistance, okay? I mean, students who have always been taught in a traditional way, first time they do guided discovery, they are a bit lost. They say, what are we doing? You're not teaching us, okay? So, yeah.
Great, thank you. And just Masa's just posted a question. I wonder if we can just touch on and explore a tiny bit. Is it possible to consider all types of multiple intelligence, brackets 9 types, as a method or strategy to engage more students? And I wondered if, you know, this is a kind of like we've all been having this conversation for a while,
yes.
and then about neurodiversity, okay, maybe as well.
This is what I think about multiple intelligences. I don't want on learning styles. I don't want to hurt any feelings, and you can disagree. But what I think is that we've all been drawn into the multiple intelligences theory, and we've spent too much time trying to identify what learning style each student is for some time. And then we realized that really, my dog. So, and then we realized that it didn't really help us. So what I do think about multiple intelligences is, give me a second. Please, please. Okay. The dog is being removed. Okay, so what I think about multiple intelligences is offering variety so that everybody is at comfortable, happy, whatever. I think it's really important. But also that, I don't know, if you're teaching something related to music, of course, musical intelligence is going to be of utmost importance. And if you're teaching, you know, map reading, geography, I think spatial intelligence is very important. So I think it depends on what you're teaching, but in the context of ELT, you need to have variety so as to provide different kinds of stimulus to every learner. I don't know if it makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you very much, Vicky. Yeah, I think like in terms of all that variety, multimodal input, multimodal resources such as the ones in Sensations English are great because you've got various different ways and learners can choose how to access the content.
Absolutely.
And putting them in control of it as well, which they can be because they can be on their smartphones and using it that way. So Vicky, thanks ever so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you, people, for being here with me. Lots of people from all over the world. I'm so happy.
Fabulous. Just to say, if I may share my screen for a second.
Yes, sure.
If you haven't already watched the other webinars, remember you can catch up on any webinars you've missed at sensationsenglishwebinars.co.uk. And remember to share them on your social media to your colleagues, and keep an eye out on our social media for the next webinar for teachers, which will be coming up soon. If you want to, just a reminder that all of the content that we provide is available on our website, and you can sign up for that. And as a school, you can sign up for a package for all of your students and teachers. And just if you want to continue the conversation, jump on our social media, and comment on Vicky's posts on LinkedIn, and you can follow us in all of the different ways that we are available on the screen there. And I'll post a link into the chat just before we go. But that's it. That remains for me to say thank you very much, Vicky. Again,
Thank you.
for that.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.
And yeah,
Good
and
day.
have a great day, night, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world.
Yeah,
Thanks very
wherever
much.
you are.
Bye.
Bye-bye.